What's up, everybody? I hope everybody that's listening to this is safe and healthy. I wanted to give you guys some insight into where I'm at in this whole process, basically as a coach, as a mentor to people, in terms of what I'm doing with the situation of COVID-19 or the coronavirus. I want to give you guys some insight. I want to give you guys some direction. But before I do that, I want to give you guys where my mindset is at on this whole thing. So basically, last week, as things were getting more serious here in the United States. Um, Different states within the US were starting to make different mandates or different regulations and rules. I really just kind of wanted to take a step back because even though a lot of you look to me for answers or my insight when it comes to bodybuilding, this issue to me is a global issue. It's so much bigger than bodybuilding that I didn't want my first reaction about this to be, okay, what can we do in terms of bodybuilding? Because I think in times like this, we really need to kind of reestablish or reprioritize where our value system is, especially during times like this, to really kind of look at the big picture of what's going on, what do we need to address, how can we help? Because for me, guys, as much as I love bodybuilding, and I still to this day, even though I coach guys on a high level, I'm such a fan of the sport. The guys that I either coach, used to coach, guys that I don't coach, I still kind of keep up with them as best as I can because I just love it, you know. But at the same time, when situations and world crisis and pandemics happen, I think it takes, for me at least, you know, I really wanted to kind of reevaluate and just see where I stood on this issue, see what was unfolding, kind of watch it all unfold. My mindset has really changed over the past couple of years, being a dad now, being a provider of a household. You know, I value life and I value the life of my kids. So that's kind of where I took a stand on this. So just to kind of give you guys a little bit of insight into our family. Not only do I think it's very important for us to heed the advice, rules, and regulations of our government, that's something I feel very strongly about, but also both of my boys were sick with RSV this fall. And what that means is basically it's like a flu type sickness that impacts little kids. Dallas actually had to go on breathing treatments for about 2 weeks. He was on in-home breathing treatments several times a day. So basically, because of that, we were told from the doctors that his lungs were going to be compromised through the spring. So that kind of puts us on extra alert to really be cautious and careful during this time. And not only is it about my family, and in my extended family, I mean, my parents, not that they're extended, but my parents, my in-laws, they're basically all in the age range that we were initially hearing was going to be the most impacted from this. So when it came to my decision-making process of, am I going to train? Am I not going to train? I made my decisions ultimately, again, based off of government suggestions and then how it was going to impact my immediate family. I didn't want to make a situation that was going to put my family at risk, nor do I honestly think that I would be able to live with myself if I put my selfish desires ahead of them, which then caused somebody in my family to get sick and possibly impact their ability to recover. So that's where I'm at in all this. I think now more than ever, we really need to heed the advice of the government, whether that's on the state level, you know, the local level, or the country's level. And with that being said, we need to stay home, you know. So when it comes to staying home, now as time has passed, and I believe I have my value system and what I want to talk about. I have that all in line. You know, I think last week, not that it's about taking a stand, but I think it's about doing what's right. I wanted my post and my suggestions to be more so based off of what's going on in the big picture rather than what's going on in the sector of bodybuilding or how can you maintain or improve your bodybuilding during this time. But I also understand, like I said initially, a lot of you guys look to me for advice or want my opinion on things. So I'm more than happy to give that to you. I've done 2 Q&A sessions on Instagram over the past few days, and I've had an overwhelming amount of questions around what can we do during our training? What can we do during this time in terms of our diet? So I want to address those things for you guys. And I think within that, you guys need to also take into account, some of you guys might have home gyms. Some of you guys might have dumbbells. Some of you guys might have bands. I'm not going to give you workouts, okay? I will address workouts and some things that I think that you can do. So I'm going to do that in a few minutes. But the main thing that's been on my mind this whole time, and I come from an athletic background, is for those of you guys that are athletes, or those of you guys that love athletics or follow athletes, think about, how do athletes train, okay? Especially athletes that are not, I'm not talking about at the pro level because they have access to everything, but I'm talking about maybe even go back into the 90s. Somebody that comes to mind even in the 80s, Herschel Walker, okay? Herschel Walker was a specimen, an athletic specimen, and he basically built his entire body around sprints, anaerobic activity, around push-ups, around crunches, and around pull-ups, okay? Mostly all of us should be able to do those things. So I think we really should kind of take a step back, because I think for a lot of us, trying to program a home workout that has the level of effectiveness as to what we're used to doing in the gym is going to cause us a lot of frustration, because you simply can't compare the two, okay? But you can push your body to extremes through other means that are really going to at least allow you to be able to maintain your physique during this time. So, like I said, think like an athlete, some simple tips. Go find a hill, run hill sprints, sprint up the hill as hard as you can, walk back down, sprint back up, walk back down. I know in some areas, depending on what the government has said, some schools are completely locked down. Some schools, you have the ability to or access to an outside stadium. If you can run stadium stairs, that's something I did all throughout high school. The high schools around my area at the time, they weren't locked up. So I would be able to go in there, run stadium stairs, jog back down, sprint up, jog back down. Things like that are great, okay? And again, too, set push-up or performance goals for yourself in terms of push-ups, in terms of pull-ups. If those things are extremely hard, slow down the tempo, slow down the rep speed. Those are things that you can be doing whether or not you have access to equipment or not, okay? All of us have hills around. Even if you don't have a hill, just run straight sprints, walk back. Sprint for 20 to 30 seconds, walk back, okay? If you do that 10 times a day, that alone is going to help you maintain your legs and leg size due to the impact of the power output, anaerobic activity that you're doing during those sprint bouts, all right? Now, if you do have access to something like a cycle bike, a spin bike, that is a great way to put together some really intense HIIT workouts, and that's something that I've been suggesting to my athletes this week. Basically every other day to every third day, getting on a bike. And what I recommend doing on a bike is basically, after you warm up, find a resistance where once you increase your RPM, that through that resistance, during the sprint cycle, towards the end of that sprint duration, you really have a hard time creating power output to the point where you almost lose all your power, okay? So basically what I recommend doing is setting a work interval and a recovery interval. Let's say, just for the sake of example, the work interval is 20 seconds. Honestly, guys, if you get past 20 to 25 seconds, your output's really gonna diminish anyway. So I would really try to focus on about 15 to 25 seconds of all out work as hard as you can, life or death type output, and then recover from anywhere from, let's say, 75 seconds to 2 minutes. Again, if you can do something like that, not only is your leg size going to remain, I'm sure the pump is going to be crazy from that, but you're also going to be in an environment where you're improving your conditioning, you're improving your work capacity, and I'd be willing to bet, if this is something that you've not been doing, when we are able to return to the gyms, your work capacity and what you're able to do in the gym under a barbell squatting or something like that is just going to kind of really increase quickly. So that too is great. If you have a spin bike, I would highly encourage you to put together some HIIT workouts. And with HIIT workouts, you guys need to realize that the point of that is to kind of bring your heart rate down as much as you can and then create as much of a peak as you can. So during your rest intervals, truly just get the heart rate back down. It's a slow pedal, okay? That's something that's great. Now, let's say if you guys do have access to a barbell, there are so many things that you can do with a barbell. I was actually fortunate enough this past Sunday to be able to train. And I basically, as much as I could, I based my workout around a barbell, and then I had dumbbells up to 60 pounds. We had a band, a 1-inch band that we used as well to create more resistance and accommodating resistance as the weight was going further away from us. So just really I think this time is going to be great because it's allowing us to be creative. It's allowing us to get back to our roots of training. Again, those people that I work with that have access to a barbell, if you focus this time right now on getting strong on deadlifts, on RDLs, on barbell rows, if you have access to a bench and obviously a bench setup or a power rack, you can do bench presses, you can do close grip bench presses, you can do standing military presses, which are great, from core strength to glute stability all the way up. All right, so there's so much that you can do with just a barbell, and don't think that you can't, because you really can train your entire body, legs, squats, RDLs, glute bridges, single leg Bulgarian squats, lunges. I mean, that alone is an effective leg workout in and of itself. I think we've been fortunate to have access to gyms, which takes away our ability to think because there's so many machines, when in reality, we can really create all those movement patterns by ourselves. All right, so again, and if weight is an issue, whereas you don't have access to as much weight as what you typically are used to, again, think about this, okay? Within this time, working the max capacity is important. That's why, again, I suggest sprints, I suggest HIIT workouts, because you're able to really push the threshold of your energy expenditure in an anaerobic manner. And the same thing with training. So even if you were used to hitting sets of 8 to 10 and you got to bring that up to 18 to 20, as long as you're still hitting a failure set point, that really is what's going to make the difference. And then within that too, you can also really slow down your tempo on the eccentric portion of the movement, again, if the weight is something that is lower than what you're used to. So those are the things I would recommend as much as you can as far as training. And guys, again, I don't want this to just be all about, I think the bigger picture here is we have time to get back to family values. We have time to get back to spending time with our family. We have an abundance of time to just simply be active. All right. So outside of your specific training goals, just be active. Go out with your kids. If you don't have kids, go out with your significant other. Just be active. Jordan and I the other day, we threw the football for like 45 minutes. I probably honestly haven't done that with her since high school. And we had a blast, but just think outside the box, outside of the training things that I talked about. Find ways to be active. The second question I've been getting a lot of, and I think it's just kind of assumed, is what do we need to do with our diets? All right. Now, first and foremost, and when it comes to accessibility of food, I understand that we're all in different parts of the country or the world, and this is all being mandated, and the opportunity to get food is a somewhat of a risk, or we don't have access to what we're used to. But guys, again, this is where understanding macronutrient content, what you're eating, it matters so much, because if you can't get the same protein source that you're used to getting, whether that's beef or chicken, we have access to turkey meat, lunch meat. Lunch meat is readily available right now. It's not running out. Cans of tuna fish, some stores have them, some stores don't. If you could stock up on that, that's another good one. The fish markets are wide open with fish. All right, so just think outside the box. And then in terms of carbohydrates, I'm not a proponent of if it fits your macros plan at all, but during a time like this where food is scarce or the accessibility to food is hard, just think outside the box. Fruits right now are readily available in the United States. Cereals right now are readily available in the United States. So far, I've not seen a shortage of oatmeal. Breads are hit or miss. Rice is missing pretty much everywhere. Which I kind of find funny, because I don't feel like most of the American population even eats rice or would take the time to cook it properly, but that's another topic. Pasta is pretty scarce in most situations, but just make what you have work, okay? Don't, be afraid of fructose. I would keep things based around nutrition and whole foods, but outside of that, just use what you can find, swap the macro sources based off of your needs, and go from there. Okay, so now let's address your needs. I've had a lot of people just automatically assume that they need to reduce their diet. The first thing that I would say is, yes, typically most of us, I would say 95 to 97% of us should not be gaining weight during this time. But I've talked about this before on Camp Jansen. I've talked about this before on my prep videos. I think we kind of neglect individual metabolism. Like, there's some guys that I'm working with right now that are not in a position to be able to train, but yet I have not reduced their food, because I know if I reduce their food, their ability to hold on to tissue due to their metabolism is going to be much harder. All right. Now, something else I want to address too, which again needs to be put in priority before your physique needs of your diet, is if you have lost your job, if you're in a position where your finances are going to be compromised, you need to eat based off of your compromised finances. I should have said that first, but I want to have that in there. Now, if your finances are not being compromised, what do we do? Okay, so again, the first thing I addressed is individual metabolism. Now, the longer these preventative measures are in place, as far as what the government's doing, as far as, you know, what your country is doing, I would say the longer this goes on, the more there might be a need to reduce your diet. But I would say initially off the bat, especially the first 2 to 3 weeks, I would say that most of us, especially those of you guys that truly train hard week in and week out, you're going to benefit from some reduction of energy output, some reduction of training, and also maintaining a consistent diet based off of what you were doing before the gyms were closed. Now, as I said, as time goes on, there might be a need to reduce food, but I would say initially off the bat, your metabolism is not just going to halt in a day or two simply because you've had a reduction of energy expenditure. All right, and the quicker you understand that, the better. Not so much just for this time in our country or in our world, but honestly, long term in terms of bodybuilding, it's not just based off of, you know, we need to prioritize metabolism. All right, so keep that in mind. Now, I want to talk about something else, another end of the spectrum, somebody like myself. So I kind of feel like I'm at a point where I'm no longer as sensitive to food, as responsive to food. So I've taken this time to actually diet on purpose. So that way when this clears and this is over, I'm going to be in a much better position to kind of utilize food, to bring my uptake up, to be more responsive to food, to get better pumps in the gym, just to overall be leaner and kind of improve my my baseline and my set point, and then progress from there. So that's what I'm doing. But I didn't do this because I just simply decreased my energy expenditure. I did it for a goal and a purpose to kind of keep myself mentally locked in during this time, and have a goal. All right. So I think that having a goal, whether it's I'm going to commit to doing 30 minutes of cardio a day, I'm going to commit to losing weight during this time in a methodical way, I'm going to commit to being active and just getting outside for 45 minutes a day. Those things are huge, you know. So for me and myself, I've committed to 30 minutes of cardio a day. I've committed to basically assertively bringing my weight down based off of my body needs, to then be in a really good position to increase food once this ban is lifted. So those are the things that I'm doing. So if you're in a position where you've kind of been, you know, your off season's been long, or you don't feel like you're as responsive as you once were to food, I think now is a great time, especially in the sense that food is more limited, to reduce your calories. Okay. Now, again, I'm not saying you need to reduce your calories specifically because this ban or these recommendations have been put in place. I'm just saying, if you know that you're no longer as responsive to food, your insulin sensitivity is down, you just go into the gym and it takes you longer to get a pump or to hold a pump due to body fat levels, now's a great time to kind of hit a diet phase, and just, again, do what you can. I understand that the training is going to be hit or miss or not as consistent, but there's means by which we can get energy expenditure and create a caloric deficit for ourselves through food, through going outside and walking, through being more active, you know, through picking up a ball and going to a park, and if you're allowed, playing basketball by yourself, things like that. All right. So again, guys, I hope this video is some encouragement to you. I want to circle back around to what I said at the beginning. I hope you guys are taking this seriously, just for the sake of humanity. This is so much bigger than ourselves. And the sooner that we all follow these guidelines and regulations, the sooner we're all going to be in a better position to soon enjoy what we love again, you know. And as I watched the video, which I was very impressed with, by Conor McGregor this morning, and he's basically said the blueprint's been laid out for us. We just need to follow it. And if we follow it ahead of the time that the countries that have laid it out for us have followed it, we're going to be in a much better position. So that's my take on all this. I hope this video has helped some of you guys that are wondering or lost as to what to do during this time. If you have any more questions, just put them in the comments below. If they're detailed questions, I can do another video on them. My goal is to be bringing you a lot of content here in my office on a weekly basis. You know, my ability to give you guys gym content has been reduced greatly. So during this time, I want to be giving you guys as much educational information as I can based off of my experience, my thought processes, and go from there. So again, guys, I hope you guys are all safe and healthy. Please do what you can to stop this. You know, the more we're united as a team and not individuals looking for our own selfish goals, the quicker and sooner this is going to be over. So thank you very much.